for Olympic Games is they don't pay you. Actually, there's no money around it unless you're Michael Phelps and you get advertisements and things like that. So what I was doing in tangent to rowing full-time and being a student is I am now currently a human capital management consultant for a company called Ernst & Young. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but I do leadership development in the commercial space instead of the athletic space, is how you can think about it. And in addition to that, I started my own small consulting practice, helping colleges build out leadership development academies for their student athletes. So if this is a little bit about what I do, why am I here today? My job today is to convince you that you can't lead a group whose story and purpose you don't know. And you won't know it fully until you first know how to tell your own story and figure out how your purpose fits in with it. So that's why I'm here today. But why are you here today? I don't know the whole demographic here, but I'm sure some of you are coaches. I'm sure some of you are athletes. I'm sure almost all of you are involved in athletics in some way. Today's workshop applies to you because you will have opportunities to step up and lead. And you will almost always do so when being part of a team. And that's what today's workshop is all about. It is knowing how to build your own personal story, apply purpose to it, and then fit it in with your team's story and purpose. And that's why today's workshop is important, right? It's important to know how to tell your own story for when you do step up and lead. And it's also important to know how to weave it in to your teams. So we'll start off by anchoring your story by tying it to your core values in order to make it more authentically you. Then we'll build purpose around your story by giving it direction. We might know where you are today, but where are you going? What are you driving at? Finally, we'll wrap up by connecting the dots between your story and your team's story. So let's dive right in and chat about anchoring your story to core values. My first question to you all is, who here remembers playing Little League anything? Again, this is really a conversation workshop, so I step up and come off of mute. I can't see everybody now because I'm sharing my screen and the camera goes off to the side a little bit. But did anyone here ever play like Little League baseball or basketball, football, soccer, something like that? Feel free to come off mute because I won't be able to see everyone's faces here, but.
Yes.
Abby, yes. Okay, cool. Did anyone else? I won't call on you. Chris Kolowski, did you ever play like Little League baseball or anything like that?
I did, yeah.
You did? Sweet. Well, this is me as a Little League baseball player. I loved baseball. I was terrible at baseball. I have awful hand-eye coordination. And in the 8th grade, after all of this Little League practice in the 8th grade, I tried out for this team that everyone really makes the team. They could have 40 people try out for the team and everybody makes it. Obviously, not everybody plays. But after tryouts, it was really embarrassing. I was the only kid who did not make the team. And it's because I was a bad player, but the coaches themselves gave me an opportunity to be the manager on the team. And so I did. I said yes. And they put me in charge of a lot of things, more logistically, like of the equipment, cleaning up the dugout and things like that. I learned how to take care of things, which really led to me to develop this sense and value of stewardship, right? It wasn't until later that I found something that required no hand-eye coordination. It was later on in high school that I started rowing crew and finally won my first race. And during that time, I had a coach that built a lot of discipline in our team, and specifically for me. And it was through that experience, I grew a lot in my intentionality, right? So why am I telling you about my core values? Some say, when you ask them what they value, they'll say something like, oh, well, I really value my car, or I really value that Chinese restaurant down the block. Like, these things are good, right? They're valuable, they add value to our lives, but they aren't core values. Brene Brown has been studying values for years, right? She defines them as a way of being or a belief that you hold most important. That's when you're saying to me, well, Chet, well, like, that Chinese restaurant is my way of being, right? Have you tried the dumplings? Like, I get it. It's probably really good, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about establishing core values and anchoring them to who we are. Core values are very similar to virtues in this sense, right? You don't have to be, but they don't have something you're always good at, right? They can be something that you're striving to be better at. The other thing about values is that people have different values, right? They're shaped by our experiences and our environments, right? Baseball and rowing shaped mine, but so did a whole bunch of other things. So my question to you is, and our first exercise today is, what do you think are your core values? If you go ahead and now transition to your worksheet, we're going to explain it a little bit more. On the second page, you have definitely a non-exhaustive list of core values, right? And it's actually values that Brene Brown has done a lot of her research around. And that's where I got this list from. I know also you guys are in the leadership development class and you do some work with core values. If you've already identified what your core values are, that's fantastic. But in the off chance that you haven't, we're going to spend some time now figuring that out. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes here to go through this list of core values on your worksheet and just pick 10 that resonate with you. What do I mean by that? Like, when you read the core value, it's got to be like, oh, that kind of like something happens. Like, I don't really care about kindness, right? Not true, but I'm using this as an example. I don't really care about kindness, but communication is something that really I really value. I value strong and good and clear communication. So that's one of my 10. That's what I mean. All right. So for the next 2 minutes here, I'm going to work silently. I'll shut up. I want you guys to just go through that list, and on your worksheet, none of you have printed it out because we just shared it, but feel free to open up and type in the worksheet to your top 10 values. All right. I'll give you 2 minutes right now to work through it. Go ahead and get started. Feel free also to say something, like come off mute and say something if you got a question. I'll give you like another minute here to comb through it. Just find 10 that resonate with you. All right. You might not have 10 yet. You might be close to 10. But I'm going to make this a little bit difficult for you now. You're going to take your 10 and dwindle it down to 5. So in this context, think about 5 that kind of mesh together. Like if you chose grit and determination, those two are kind of synonyms of each other. They can definitely combine So pick out of the 10 that you chose, what are 5 that you definitely can't live without? I'll give you only 60 seconds here to dwindle it down. What are some that are really, really important to you? All right, you're gonna hate me here, but we're taking those 5. And if you can only have 2, which ones would they be? Which ones that you've identified here influence all others, right? You can only pick 2 of them, but begin telling the narration of it. Like, what's the story behind these 2? How do they impact the other values? I know we all have more than just 2 values, but what are the ones that are specifically you? You only get 2. I'll give you another 30 seconds here to dwindle them down to just 2. Okay, cool. Hunter, I'm going to call on you. What were your core values that you picked out and why?
I chose toughness and resiliency and authenticity. I think the first one, I think I just kind of based that off of athletics, and then also my family, and just like, you know, certain things that I've gone through recently or throughout my life, and then certain things in my family and I that have kind of gone through together, whether it be, you know, hard times or you know, good times, but that have made me tougher as a person, more resilient. And then authenticity, I think I just try to be, you know, authentic in everything that I do, and be purposeful with everything that I say and do, and hope that that's apparent to the people I'm around.
Yeah, that's boss. That's boss. Thank you for sharing. Reedy, what about you? What were your core values and why'd you choose them?
Sorry, I was trying to come off mute while also looking at it.
No worries.
So my top 2 were family and community and selflessness. And I kind of said family and community because family and community kind of shapes who you are. Like, that kind of leads to all your other values. Like, for me, a lot of my core values come from what has been instilled in me from my family, and also because, like, those are the closest people to me. And I said selflessness because my goal is kind of just to act selflessly. You know, they say the word like servant leadership a lot. And
Yeah,
I think like that's one of the more important things to me, is like to help others just as much as I'm helping myself.
yeah, wicked cool. Wicked cool. Thank you for sharing. So we now have an idea of what your core values might be, but now we want to find a story or a few short stories here where your values come to life, right? So think of the prompt here. In the last year, describe a moment when you felt that you were at your best or most proud as an individual part of a team. All right, using this prompt, I want you guys to jot down ideas of stories. It could be one in particular or multiple stories, but in your worksheet, you have space there On number 4, think of a story, ... Put your bullet points right there. I'll give you about 2 minutes here. We don't want paragraphs, right? But even as Hunter and Reedy began to explain here, they chose core values because of a reason. A lot of it is because of their personal experiences, right? Similar to my personal experiences, baseball, rowing, and a ton of other things that I haven't shared, right? Why those are core values of mine. So that's what we're doing here. Connect the core values to stories, either of your environment or your experiences. I'll give you 2 minutes here, just bullet points. Go. All right, I know the rough drafts, and you can spend plenty more time building out these stories. But who has one that they'd like to share?
I can go.
Heck yeah, Jalen. Can you tell us your core values first?
Yeah, I did spiritual growth and adventure. And I think something that I'm like personally proud of is I like transferred on this. I'm taking my 5th year here at Clemson, but I spent 4 years at a great school and like had like some of my very best friends there. So I think taking the adventure and like coming here and starting over by myself was like a lot of courage. And I think that adventure like helped me like be like a proud teammate of like this new team here at Clemson. And I'm just really glad I did that.
Sweet. Sweet. Thanks for sharing, Jalen. Okay, so we have a sense of our core values, right? And we also have a story about them. Now we're going to start building purpose around it. And how do we do that? Well, we do it by connecting our core values to our goals and our intentions, right? Core values tell us where we are, but they don't really show always where we're going, right? And because you see, leaders, they should always be moving in a direction, right? They might be leading the charge, but if they aren't going anywhere, then who really wants to follow them? Remember, the objective is to not only know where you're headed, but to inspire others to follow you there. Because ultimately, people want to be valued members of a winning team on an inspired mission, right? And so how do we build an inspired mission? Well, we want to connect purpose around the mission. We want to connect purpose of where we're going. And we can do this by putting together our own purpose statements, right? We take the values that we've identified, we combine them with our personal stories, and we create a personal purpose statement. So let me give you an example. My personal purpose statement is to be a catalyst for growth in the lives of other people so that together we can better steward our God-given opportunities. Here, I've combined my values of stewardship and intentionality and put it in the framework that I'll give you guys in a moment of this 2 action verbs, so what, impact, to create a purpose that has a narrative around it that is anchored authentically in me, right? I want to be a catalyst for growth in the lives of other people. Why? So that together we can better steward our God-given opportunities, right? Catalyst is where the intentionality comes in, and steward is obviously where stewardship comes in. So how do we do this, right? We're going to be walking through, I'll give you a framework in a moment, but personal purpose statements really ought to be driving towards these 5 things. First and foremost, it's got to apply to your whole life, right? It's got to include your work, your home, your community, your sports team, right? It doesn't want to be siloed out because you're not a siloed out person. In order to be authentically yourself, you want to show up authentically everywhere you go. And that's why your personal purpose statements have got to apply to your whole life. So of all, they got to start with an action verb. And I'll give you some help with this in a moment. I'll give you some more examples of personal statements. But mine was to be a catalyst, right? It drives me towards something that I want to accomplish. I want to be a catalyst. It's also going to be short and easy to understand, right? We're not talking 5, 6 sentences here. We're talking 1, maybe 2 max. It's got to be free of strategies and numbers and tactics, right? We're not going to be measuring our goals. We're not quantifying our growth here. We're telling a story. We're telling our story, and we're justifying our actions and behaviors because of who we are and what our experiences environment is. Finally, and this is probably the most important, personal purpose statements have got to feel good to you. They've got to inspire you, right? If they don't feel good or inspire you as the leader, then how do you ever hope to, inspire your team to follow you in the pursuit of that goal, right? So keep these 5 things in mind, and we'll reference them again. But think about, as we look at some examples of personal purpose statements, right? Starting out with action verbs, right? To elevate, empower, build, help, inspire, right? These things are action verbs. I want to do something so that it has an impact somewhere. So we have these 2 so that formats to elevate every person so they're empowered to be unstoppable. Whoa, that's kind of like a pretty big purpose statement. You can put a lot underneath that. They don't have to be super specific, right? Like mine is not super specific. There are a lot of ways I can be a catalyst for growth. And there are a lot of ways I can steward God-given opportunities, right? But I use that as a justification for why I do many things. Similar to here, right? To build bridges of understanding so that unconscious biases are something people read about in history books. Like, that's a cool action. That's a call to arms. Like I am inspired by that. I want to follow a person who is really inspired by that as well. So here's the framework, right? Remember, it's got to apply to your whole life. It's got to start with an action verb. It's got to be short and it's simple to understand, and it's got to inspire you, right? Keep out the numbers. But here's the framework, right? So if you flip over in your worksheet, you'll find some space to explore your own purpose statements. Remember, what we're trying to do here is connect your core values to your intentions, right? That's how you build purpose around your story. So use the core values that we just identified and your story as well. That's how they fit in here. Take a few minutes to build out a couple of drafts. I gave you some space there to build out a few drafts of your own personal purpose statement. And we'll come together afterwards to talk about it. Again, it's not going to be perfect the first time. It's just not. We're going to hone it, and you'll have your own time to hone it after today's workshop. But feel free to utilize the values chart on the first page to help brainstorm other action verbs to kickstart your purpose statement. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys another 2 minutes-ish here to do this. Remember, so that my purpose, and think of the challenge like this. My desire is to walk into your purpose statement. What is it? My desire is to go for it. I'll leave it on the example page too, so you guys can see some frameworks. Remember, it's not going to be perfect, so don't get caught up on the wordings just yet. Try to get the ideas out there first, connecting core values with the short stories that you've built bullet points around. More drafts, you can refine them. Give you like 20, 30 more seconds. Finish your thoughts here. All right, who's got something they want to share? Who tap into some courage here? None of them is going to be pretty unless you're a poet and have really picked this up, or perhaps you already know it. But who's proud of what they put down there? Who wants to share?
I will.
Sweet.
I said to draw out unique greatness so that individuals and teams transform and thrive.
Wow. Abby, that sounds great.
Thanks.
Have you done this before?
I mean, I've thought about it before, but I enjoy like learning it in a new way. And I actually had a different purpose statement originally, and I made a new one today. So
Hey,
really
that's great. Can you say it again for us?
to draw out unique greatness so that individuals and teams transform and thrive.
Sweet. That's really great, Abby. Thanks for sharing. Who's got one more that they want to share?
I got one.
Yeah? All right, Shannon, let's hear it.
I said to do the common things in an uncommon way to command the attention of the world.
Say it one more time for me.
I said to do the common things in an uncommon way to command the attention of the world.
Wow. Heck yeah. Jalen, what did you think about that?
I thought it was better than mine. I mean, these like all sound like really good. I like struggle a little bit like trying to get mine to go, but it sounded like it flowed really well.
Yeah. You wanna test yours?
Yeah, well, my two core values I thought were hard because I picked like adventure and spiritual growth, but I just said to venture out of your comfort zone so that everyone that surrounds me can go and evolve as one as we all learn and grow.
What are you talking about? That's great.
Thanks.
Jalen, that's great. It is tough. You're right. How to incorporate like spiritual growth in there can be challenging. And there are some core values that don't fit into this framework easily, but they can in some nuanced ways. For instance, faith is another value of mine. I didn't focus it specifically in my purpose statement, but you'll see it in when I talk about our God-given opportunities. Well, when someone asks, what is a God-given opportunity? Oh, well, I actually also value faith. And this is where I can share a little bit more about it, right? So we don't always have to use the keyword as like a, as steward has been used in mine, or in Abby or in Sheridan's to do uncommon ways, right? We can filter in other values in different ways in the fluff around our purpose statement. Guys, those are incredible. Nice work. I like to say I'm a great teacher, but I know you all are just smart students and picking it up quickly. So we're starting to fill out our own stories, which is really important. But how do we connect it to our teams? That's really why we're here, right? Well, that's part of the reason why we're here. And in order to do that, we want to embody the mantra, better me, better we. What do I mean by it? Well, what we've done so far is to create a narrative, right? Not about what you do, but about who you are. And it starts like this. Let me tell you about a time my core values of stewardship and intentionality came to life. So you want to insert your bullet points of your story there, right? But then connect it to your personal purpose statement by saying something like this. So you see, because of my values and because of my experiences, I have the desire to ... And then you want to fill it in with your personal statement, right? Here's an example. Let me tell you about a time when my core values of stewardship and intentionality came to life. I'll tell you about baseball and rowing and perhaps other things that come to mind. So you see, because of my values and because of my experiences, I have a desire to be a catalyst for growth in the lives of other people so that together we can better steward our God-given opportunities. But it doesn't end there, right? Use your values and your purpose statements to justify where you're going by saying, and that is why, right? I have a desire to be a catalyst for growth in the lives of other people so that together we can better steward our God-given opportunities. And that is why, that is why I'm here today, right? That's why I'm here teaching this workshop. That's why I'm getting a master's degree in leadership development. And that is why I'm in human capital consulting, why I was a missionary for a few years, why I volunteer my time to mentor young athletes. It's a powerful narrative that inspires people to follow you. And it works for your teams as well, right? Instead of saying why you, or let me tell you about a time about my core values, change the language a bit. Let me tell you about a time our core values of X and Y came to life. Then you want to insert bullet points about a team story that you've embraced, that comes up to mind. So you see, because of our values and because of our experiences, we have the desire to, now you would insert your team purpose statement, right? But remember, it doesn't end there, right? Because of our values And because of our experiences, we have the desire to do X, Y, and Z. And that is why we're building men and women of character. And that is why we're redefining success outside of wins and losses. And that is why we're driving radical change to do X, Y, and Z. This is how you inspire others. It's how you connect your personal purpose to your team's purpose. Because remember, you can't lead a group whose story and purpose you don't know. And you won't know it fully until you first know how your own story fits in with it. This is why it's important to know how to tell your own story and how to tell it well. And hopefully I've given you some tools to do that here today. Any questions? And that's a genuine offer. If you do have questions, you're welcome to ask them.
Chet, I have a question.
Yeah.
If you are working with a team and you are kind of moving into the team story, essentially, would you do something similar, but with the team as a whole? Like, hey, your group
Absolutely.
of 20.
Yeah, absolutely, Abby. And the framework could change just a tiny bit, right? Identifying values as a team is a little bit trickier because you want to connect them to the goals, just kind of like what we did, but you also want to add behaviors into it and systems of accountability into it as well. So applying this framework for teams is exactly the same with a little bit more things. Like we want to be intentional about what behaviors can we do to bring about this change, right? That's where the conversation would go. But creating the narrative is the exact same. So you would identify values of the team, and that would be a group discussion. Hey team, for this semester, like if you wanted to have a little bit more insight on that, rather than having them just full reign, choose whatever values they wanted, you could say like, here's a list of 25 values that you pre-picked. Which ones do you guys want to pursue this season? That's a way to kind of have some hands-on with it. They would then identify core values, and then it would be another group discussion on, okay, well, how do we fit into these core values? Are they something that we're striving towards? Or are they something that we also are embodying ourselves? And what comes to mind when you think of them? And then you would get a whole group participation of sharing funny stories and tying it to those core values, right? That's that team story aspect. And then you would go through the exact same thing with building out your team purpose statement, remembering, that they've got to be something quick and easy to remember. Not quick, but simple in that sense. It's starting with the action verb is important, and keeping it more concise at this point is even better, because then you could challenge your team to memorize it. Just as you want to memorize your own purpose statement, you could challenge your team to memorize their purpose statement. And now all of a sudden you've got a great standard to hold them accountable to. Whenever a behavior breaks from the norm, and there needs to be some sort of consequence or discipline or something like that, you can say, hey, remember why we're doing, do you remember what we're driving towards? Remember how this was a collective conversation and you agreed to be a part of it? This is what we're expecting, right? And that's how the conversation shows. And that is why we are doing it this way. And that is why, your behaviors were wrong or something like that. But the framework to your question, the buildup, is very similar.
Thank you.
I think too, just chiming in and working with teams, a lot of times a program or a head coach will have the cultural values set. And the head coach might have his or her own way of describing them. But I think to Chet's point, you still have an opportunity with each group, with each team that's assembled, to maybe add to, tweak that definition, and definitely attach different behaviors to them, because each team is going to operationalize those values differently to the betterment of that group that you have that year. So
Stop sharing so we can all see each other's faces. What other questions you got? Did you disagree with anything? Anything was like, I don't know about that, Chet. And totally fine if that's the case. I'd love all feedback.
Yeah, if y'all do have observations and feedback for Chet, ways that he can improve this and make it better, that's definitely part of the other class, and so part of this assignment. So, definitely offer suggestions if you have them. I thought it was very good, Chet. I thought it was very to the point. It was very engaging, but not a lot of fluff. Like you really got to the heart of the matter very quickly. Everything flowed very well.
Thanks, Jenna.
I just want to say that just judging, based on personal experience with other Zooms with guest speakers, I really liked how you had the handout. I thought that was really easy to follow and good for us, just in case we need to take that back either and reflect on it after this or to our own teams or organizations or whoever we're with, because sometimes I think you hop on these meetings, you just get lost in like the meeting if it's just a PowerPoint. So I thought that was really helpful.
Oh, great. Thank you.
All right. Well, if no one else has questions or comments, Chet, why don't you and I stay on here for a couple more minutes and just wrap things up. And I just want to say thanks to everyone for being here. I think this is something, even if this is something that you have done before, you can always use a tune-up on your values and your personal statements and why you're doing what you're doing. So thanks for being here, being engaged. Maybe this is something you can take back with you to your teams, but have a great day. And Chet, I'll see you in just a second.
Sounds good.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks.
Is all that water gone?
It is. It's all gone.
How you feel?
Good. Good. 60 minutes is